Hello and welcome to Boston College Theater Reviews. I'm your host, Amir Chambers, and I am going to be reviewing the play The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which was put on by the Boston College Theater Department. The director and the playwright is Luke Jorgensen, and I went to go see this play November 17th at Rob Sham Theater. I thoroughly enjoyed this play. This play was about four siblings who lived in London during World War II. And they essentially had seen a lot of the bombings and they were trying to escape, along with many other people that were trying to escape London at that time. It was a very dangerous time, and so they were sent to live with a professor. And the youngest sibling, named Lucy, ended up stumbling upon a wardrobe, and this wardrobe had, I mean, you could say that it was quite a magical experience, literally. She ended up in a magical kingdom known as Narnia, and the play essentially follows all four of the siblings actually going into the wardrobe and ending up in Narnia and all of the crazy adventures that they go on in Narnia. So I would definitely want to then go into some of the key parts of the play that stuck out to me the most, and I'm going to start with acting and directing. I would say that my favorite performance was by Mrs. Beaver, who was played by Liv Sheridan, and her performance was absolutely fantastic. Every time that she appeared on stage, she absolutely stole the scene. No matter what the scene was, she was able to come on the stage with her incredible presence, which included a lot of jokes. And she also, Liv Sheridan, she was able to control the beaver as a puppeteer, and she was just absolutely phenomenal in the way that she was able to captivate the audience and to keep them very engaged in the scenes. And I also felt that every time that she appeared on the stage, everyone got very excited, and I could kind of hear it as I was sitting in the audience. I could hear whenever she appeared on the stage, like there she is, because she really did a fantastic job of commanding the audience and essentially stealing the show. And the show slowly started to become, when is she going to come back on the stage? And she did an absolutely fantastic job. I would say that her performance was my favorite. I would also say that Luke Jorgensen, the director, did a very good job as well. I felt that his vision in adapting the writing of C.S. Lewis into this play was masterful. I felt that his incorporation of the different dance groups on BC's campus, for example, Sexual Chocolate, they were able to actually one of my favorite scenes was when there was a dance battle, and as opposed to having it be a full on fight as some people remember from the novel or just what they understand about the story, there was an actual dance fight, and that was very entertaining, and I truly felt like there was a lot of creativity that was brought into this play, into the production overall, and I definitely would want to applaud Luke Jorgensen for his vision and just the entirety of the play itself. It was absolutely extraordinary. As it pertains to the costumes, I felt that the costume designer Jackie Daly did a fantastic job. Specifically, I would say that the White Witch's costume literally stole the show. I felt that every time that the White Witch appeared on the stage, everyone's eyes directly went to her because of the sparkles, because of her big crown, and essentially, even though the lights did not directly center her, her costume was essentially acting as a spotlight. And I felt that that was done terrifically. The way that she was able to captivate the audience just by walking on the stage and seeing all the sparkles, it commanded you to look at her, as opposed to her speaking loudly or her making grand gestures with her hands. In fact, I think that was the brilliance of it, was that she was able to make very small gestures because the White Witch is very calm, and sometimes she'd have bursts of energy because she's this evil witch, and so sometimes she would get upset, but there'd be times where she'd be very calm, and you could kind of just see her say things very calmly. And I also believe that the way that her costume was made added to that. The sparkles, you could just see it, and you could see the way that the dress dragged on the ground. It really commanded her presence as she was walking across the stage, and you could see her dress dragging behind her, and you could see her crown, and it just made you analyze everything. And I remember as she actually walked on the stage, I heard some people applauding, just because of how much the costumes just commanded the scene. I would also say that the costume for Aslan was fantastic as well. Again, giving credit to the costume designer Jackie Daly. Aslan, as he actually walked onto the stage, because the way that Aslan had entered the scenes, he came from behind a curtain. And I think a lot of people, including myself, had pictured that he was actually going to come on as a lion. But instead, he came on wearing this knight kind of costume. He had these kind of gold-plated gloves, I guess is what you would call it. He had a sword, and he had a cape, and on his shirt, he actually had a lion face, which I thought was done beautifully as well, just because we know that Aslan is a lion, which actually is alluded to later on in the play, and then eventually does turn into a lion through some puppeteer work. But I really felt that those two costumes distinctly were amazing. In fact, I could hear when he walked onto the stage, I could hear people gasping, like, wow, because it looked amazing. I really do feel like the costumes commanded the scenes, and so that's why I feel that a lot of the time, each costume that was brought onto the stage and was designed was specifically made to command the scene. I thoroughly enjoyed the lighting. I feel like the lighting was done very well for the most part. I did have a few issues, but I'll talk about the I would say the positives first before I get to the negatives. The positives, some of my favorite scenes that incorporated lighting was actually the first scene of the play when the siblings are trying to escape from London during World War II, and you could see them as well as other actors using flashlights on the stage as opposed to any of like the spotlights that were suspended above the stage. And I felt like that was actually done very well because they could have used spotlights to, show the actors themselves running, which they did for a couple seconds just to show, where they were. But besides that, it was actually the actors on the stage that were using, physical flashlights themselves, which I thought was done well to show the authenticity of the actors running away in the middle of the night. And one issue I had was when one of the actors had a flashlight and flashed it right in my eyes, and I was like, okay. And I get it. They were trying to be authentic. They were trying to say, oh, like we're escaping, and we gotta look to see where we are. But they could have just showed the flashlight on the stage, and that would have been fine with me. But I felt like the flashlights actually going into the audience was a little much, and people who do have eye issues would definitely have a problem with that as well. Luckily, I don't have any eye issues, but I do think that just the idea of showing the flashlight into the audience wasn't necessary. Um, at the end of the play, the professor picks up Lucy's lion, which is supposed to symbolize Aslan, in my opinion. He puts it down, and this is again towards the end of the play. He kind of puts it down, and as a way to kind of close the play out, the spotlight centers down on the lion, and then it slowly closes out. And I thought that that was done well, because all of the actors had left. The professor was the last actor on the stage. He puts it down and then steps away, and then the spotlight is on the lion, and it closes out, and then it comes back, and then Lucy comes and grabs the lion, and then the play ends with the wardrobe making this kind of magical sound, like oh, and then her turning around and essentially walking towards the wardrobe, which I think was a very brilliant way to end the play. I think that the set was actually very good. I believed in the beginning of the play. I wasn't sure how they were going to show Narnia, because I did not see the kind of backdrop that would essentially reveal a whole other part of Narnia, or of the stage itself where Narnia would be. And so you would have in the professor's office, for example, you would have books and like cases kind of around. And I thought that, I felt like I was in an office. I felt like I was in a big library of a professor, which I thought was great. I felt that when it went to the Mr. and Mrs. Beaver's dam, as they would call it, you could actually see a lot of different like wood and things like that, and it would show Mr. and Mrs. Beaver's picture, and I thought that was also great, just to be able to convey that we are actually now in a dam, as opposed to we're just in some house with some wood. And I do feel like, even though it was centered in their living room, even though I understood that we were inside of their house, I felt like they could have done a little more with the stage itself, because I think we're obviously still focused on this one part of them in their living room talking to the four siblings, but I felt like it could have been expanded more, and we could have seen more wood around the stage, more blocking, so that it could look a little more immersed, as opposed to just kind of centrally focused on the living room and the rest is just kind of an empty space. I felt that when, again, this is towards the end of the play, when they have a fight, I felt that the staging, which happened to be in the Queen's lair, I felt that it felt a little forced, that you would have one side, which was the lighting. You would kind of have like a red and a kind of orange yellow tint, and the other one would be like a blue light. And I saw that they were trying to center those two groups going against each other, like actually the good versus the bad. But it still felt as if they were trying too hard to convey that these two were gonna fight each other. Essentially, what I mean is, you didn't have to use the lighting of the good and the bad. We could already see who those two were, um, and I think another interesting set design idea was when all the siblings are escaping from the wolf knights that the queen sends after them. And in it, you see they're essentially like running off of the. I don't even know how you would describe it, but they're running from the wolf knights, and there are, I guess they're running on ice, and the ice path were like small skateboards, and I thought that that was done well. But I also felt it was quite dangerous, because if someone had jumped and had fallen, that would have been a pretty bad idea in the beginning. Now, obviously, it looked like they had, done this a couple times. They had rehearsed and everything, so I'm glad that went well. And they used like a jump rope to kind of pull them across. Again, I thought that was done fairly well. But at times, I still felt that the staging felt a little forced because of the scenes, and some of it was unnecessary. Again, like I said, with the good and evil, we understood it, but we didn't really need to see, like, for example, the lighting and them kind of being on like opposite sides. Aside from that, I believe the staging was done well, and I think that even the scene when Lucy actually goes into Narnia and she kind of is like looking around and she's seeing all of the snow. I thought that was done well. Again, because it shows that she's in a completely new place, and again, the actual backdrop of the curtains, it goes up and it reveals a whole other side, which I thought was very good, because it was like, oh, so there's a whole other stage, there's a whole other part of the play that we haven't seen yet, and I thought that was done well. So again, staging was good. I did feel that there were some parts that were unnecessary, but for the most part, it definitely kept the audience immersed. So while this play has gotten a lot of praise from me, and it will continue to get praise, there are a few things that I would like to discuss that I was not a fan of, that I did mention before, but I'm going to name a few other things. I felt that Tumnus, who was played by Will Dooley, had some awkward blocking scenes where it looked as if he did not know where to stand. And for example, one of the scenes, Aslan was talking to one of the leopard warriors, I believe, and he stood directly in front of me. So I know that for other people on the other side, they could see what's happening, but on everyone on, I guess, the right side of the stage, couldn't see what was happening because he's just standing there. And again, he has like very big like hind legs because of how his costume is made, and it was hard to see what was happening in the scene. I also felt that I couldn't understand him that well. Again, he's putting on this this kind of British accent, and it was hard to hear some things he was saying. It was and I was like, okay, maybe Lucy might have understood him, or whoever he was talking to could understand him. But at times he would talk, and I was like, can he repeat that? Even though I can't ask him to do that. But that's something that I noticed a lot, was he would talk, and I really could not understand what he was saying. And I know that part of his character is he's uncertain and he's nervous. And so I understand that. But you can convey that by maybe you murmur something, but then you repeat it, or you enunciate. But I just felt like he wasn't enunciating. He was just kind of going through the motions. I also felt that Susan, who was played by Joni Lee, I felt that her acting was at times not believable. I felt that the specific scene when everyone, all the siblings and the beaver, when they're escaping from the Wolf Knights, and she's with Lucy, it felt like, and she was trying to get her to jump and everything, and they were trying to jump. She was like, come on, like you can do, like it felt like everyone else was in the state of peril, and the Wolf Knights are trying to go after them, and she just did not seem like she was really running away from doom. And I That's unfortunate. But I also felt like even there were some scenes where she was talking to her siblings, and it just, when she would talk, it didn't match the scene. While everyone else would be in this mode of whether it was peril or whether it was happiness, whether it was sadness. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes it felt like she was not in the scene. It would be, oh, like, well, everyone else is saying something that is sad. It would sound like she'd maybe be a little happier. Oh, that's like, everyone would be sad, and oh, okay, like it just seemed too nonchalant. And I felt like that definitely could have been improved on, along with the other things that I talked about earlier. Those are some things that I had an issue with. So this video is wrapping up, and I would like to say that I would highly, highly recommend this play to anyone. I was thoroughly surprised, because I have seen other schools put on productions, and even other colleges put on productions, and they weren't that great. And I really was impressed with Boston College and their ability to adapt the great work by C.S. Lewis, and really make people love the characters, and enjoy the plot and enjoy the acting overall. I would give this play a solid 4.5 out of 5 stars. And truthfully, the things that I named that I had an issue with were pretty big parts of the play, but it just had so many other factors that were overwhelmingly amazing. I mean, the acting, the blocking. I even mentioned things like sounds, like, at least the music. Sometimes when they would kind of transition to another scene, I felt like that was great. But I would absolutely recommend this play to anyone that wants to go see it. And they'll have a pleasant time. So that's all I have today for Boston College Theater Reviews. Again, I'm your host, Amir Chambers, and until next time.